The problem with understanding prehistory is that little to no evidence for written languages in the ancient world exists. If language was written down, then it must have been on materials that haven't survived. The first evidence for written languages doesn't appear until Bronze Age Mesopotamia and Egypt. Even then, much of the rest of the Bronze Age world didn't have anything close to the cuneiform and hieroglyphic writing systems that characterized those early urban centers. If we just look at the central Mediterranean as an example, the Neuralgic civilization of Sardinia, the Bahria culture in Malta, and the Proto-Villanovans of the Italian peninsula did not leave behind any written records. Information on these cultures comes from artifacts, bones, and structures, and indicates that, unlike ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, these groups probably did not have the societal and economic complexity that might support such endeavours. If we go further back than the Bronze Age, there are no written records from any Neolithic cultures at all. And what's frustrating is that this period of prehistory happens to be one of the most perplexing. Thousands of years have passed since the Neolithic period, the time when many megalithic monuments were built over a wide geographic area. Much of these still stand today, and they astound us. We are mesmerized by the effort the megalith builders went to at a time when their societies would, in theory, have lacked the sophistication needed to support such activities. It's unfortunate that these ancient people left no written records. There's a semi-diaphanous veil covering the Neolithic. We have insights, we can see something, but we don't have the full picture. So rather than interpreting the past using a combination of physical items such as pottery and human bones, along with texts and epigraphic inscriptions on monuments, researchers analysing prehistory must rely on finds alone. Not that written language resources are so straightforward anyway. Historians have to sort fact from fiction and understand the role bias may have played, but at least they have something to go on. However, there are some undeciphered scripts dating to both the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, which, if decoded, might be able to tell us something we don't know about the people who wrote them, and potentially the wider world in which they lived. In this video, I'm talking about a handful of such scripts, although there are many more. From the Minoans to the Indus Valley Civilization, from the Neolithic to the Bronze Age, I've selected some intriguing examples from different regions and time periods. Deciphering a script is a difficult process that often attracts both experts and amateurs. They look for patterns such as the number of times a symbol repeats. These days, computer programs also play a key role in decipherment. When a script is undeciphered, it's not always clear if it does indeed encode a written language or if it conveys non-linguistic symbols. Non-linguistic systems that we are familiar with include mathematical signs, Mesopotamian deity symbols, and European heraldry, amongst others. Some of the undeciphered scripts are discussed today may or may not be written languages after all, but non-linguistic markings from the ancient past instead. There are experts that support both of these arguments. Sometimes scholars get lucky when a bilingual inscription is found with the same text being written in a known script as well as an unknown one. Probably the most famous bilingual inscription is the Rosetta Stone, discovered by one of Napoleon's officers in Egypt in 1799. The granite block had been engraved with a decree in 196 BCE during the reign of Ptolemy V Epiphanes, and this decree was in 3 scripts: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, ancient Greek, and Demotic. This helped experts finally crack the code, translating both the hieroglyphic and the Demotic scripts. Malta also has its equivalent to the Rosetta Stone that played a crucial role in translating the Phoenician script. The Cipi of Melart are 2 marble pillars engraved with dedications to the Phoenician deity Melart. The dedications are bilingual, appearing in both the ancient Greek and Phoenician scripts. Found in the late 17th century, these small marble pillars date to the 2nd century BCE and were probably votive offerings in a temple or funerary monuments. It's not clear where they were found exactly. This photograph shows the Chippus, which is in the Louvre in Paris. The other one is in the National Museum of Archaeology in Valletta. Let's start with the undeciphered scripts left behind by those wonderfully intriguing people, the Minoans. The Minoan civilization was a sophisticated Bronze Age culture that lived on the island of Crete, but whose trading settlements stretched to other parts of the Aegean as well. The complexity of their society peaked around 2000 BCE, with monumental palaces, detailed frescoes, and extensive trade. One of their most iconic buildings, which is often featured in literature and guidebooks, is the Palace of Knossos. There's evidence for 3 different scripts which the Minoans developed independently of Egyptian hieroglyphs, Anatolian hieroglyphs, and Mesopotamian cuneiform that were all in use at the same time. These are Cretan hieroglyphic, Linear A, and Linear B. Only Linear B has been deciphered. The earliest evidence for Cretan hieroglyphic dates to just before the First Palace period, which began in 1900 BCE. It has been found mostly on seals and clay tablets from Knossos and Malia, and appears to have been used for recording commodities, although it has yet to be deciphered. Cretan hieroglyphs were also found on objects referred to as the Malia altar stone and the Arcalochori axe. During the Second Palace period from 1750 to 1430 BCE, the Minoans started using a more complicated script, now referred to as Linear A. While the use of Cretan hieroglyphs was centered on Knossos and Malia, Linear A was also used in southern Crete and other parts of the Aegean. Cretan hieroglyphs remained in use alongside Linear A. Since neither have been deciphered, it's not certain if they were used to write down different languages or dialects within a language. There may even have been 2 different expressions of the same language. Most likely Minoan, which is thought to have been non-Indo-European. Just as with the cuneiform of Mesopotamia, Linear A was written by making marks in clay tablets when they were wet. However, it's known as a linear script because lines were impressed into the tablets rather than the wedges typical of cuneiform. It's not clear if the script, which contains hundreds of symbols, is logographic or syllabic, or a combination of the 2. Logographic means that each symbol represents a word or a morpheme. Roughly speaking, a morpheme means a prefix or a suffix, something that's combined with a word. Syllabic means a symbol represents a sound, so part of an alphabet essentially. This is a simplistic explanation, by the way, and there are a number of variations to this, but basically, if there are hundreds of symbols, such as with ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, they represent words. If there are few symbols, they usually represent sounds, which are combined to make words, just as with the Latin alphabet we use today. And sometimes a script is a combination of logographic and syllabic. Most of the Linear A inscriptions which have been found are written from left to right. However, some are written right to left, or boustrophodonically, which means the letters are also reversed when the script is to be read from right to left. So complicated. Linear A also contains numbers which have been deciphered. It uses a decimal system made up of horizontal and vertical dashes, circles, and circles with rays, like little suns. Fractions are also represented. Much has been made of its similarities to Linear B, which succeeded Linear A. However, only 20% of its symbols are similar to Linear B, with 80% of it being totally unique. Linear B has been deciphered. It's a syllabic script that was used to write down Mycenaean Greek, an Indo-European language, from around 1400 BCE. It's been found in palace archives at sites belonging to the Mycenaean civilization, who succeeded the Minoans as the largest influence in the Bronze Age Aegean. It also contains ideograms, signs which represent specific objects. Apart from Cretan hieroglyphic and Linear A, several other undeciphered Minoan inscriptions have been found, whose relationship to these 2 scripts isn't clear. The famous Phaistos disc is a circular clay tablet with a 15 centimeter diameter, thought to date to the Middle or Late Bronze Age. It has symbols etched on both sides in a clockwise spiral pattern and was excavated in the early 20th century from the Minoan palace of Phaistos. The Phaistos disc has 242 symbols referred to as tokens made up of 45 individual signs. Researchers have suggested similarities to Cretan hieroglyphs, to the Linear A script, and to Anatolian hieroglyphs, and it's not clear if it originated on Crete at all. 1,000 years after Linear A was in use, some other inscriptions were written in Eastern Crete in the Greek alphabet, but which are not in the Greek language. They are thought to be in the pre-Greek language of Minoan, just as Cretan hieroglyphic and Linear A had been during the Bronze Age. However, they may be related to other pre-Greek languages such as Pelasgian or Tyrrhenian. So scholars refer to the inscriptions as being in the language of Etio-Cretan. Another undecipherable script dates back to Bronze Age Cyprus and has been called Cypro-Minoan due to its similarities to Linear A. It's found on clay tablets, balls, and cylinders and varies in its prevalence from city to city. It's not clear what language was written in the Cypro-Minoan script or whether it did descend from Linear A as has been suggested in the past. So the Minoans left behind a lot. Incredible palace remains, beautiful pottery, elaborate frescoes, and lots of inscriptions. Their society is known to have been complex and to have played a big role in the wider Mediterranean trading community. However, we still don't know what language they spoke. It's presumed to be non-Indo-European, but we don't know. And we still can't decode the vast majority of their inscriptions, which belong to at least two, but possibly more scripts. In the Neolithic period around 5200 BCE, a village was built on an artificial island in Lake Castoria in Greece. Excavations of the site have revealed pottery, wood belonging to huts, seeds, bones, figurines, and flutes. Archaeologists have learnt that the Neolithic inhabitants of this lakeshore practiced agriculture, animal husbandry, hunting, and fishing, and traded with other settlements in the region. But the most impressive find of all was a wooden tablet with an undeciphered script on it. The rectangular tablet measures 23 by 19.2 centimeters and is made of cedar wood. It's engraved with 10 rows of signs made up of vertical and horizontal lines. Signs are also etched into the 2 centimeter thick top part of the tablet. Even though it is more than 7,000 years old, it survived due to the anaerobic conditions of the deposit it was found in. Inscriptions were not limited to this tablet, but were found on other objects at the site as well. Engravings which are not thought to be decorative were found on a vase, a bowl, a cup, a pottery sherd, and various clay objects that may be fragments of tablets. In the paper Radiocarbon Dating of the Neolithic Lakeside Settlement of Dispilio Castoria, northern Greece, the authors feature this diagram which compares the Dispilio signs in column A with the Linear A script from Crete in column B and other Paleo-European clay tablets in the 2C columns. Experts are not sure if there is a connection. However, it does seem that these inscriptions all played a role in communicating messages during the Neolithic, a time when no written language is thought to have existed. Staying in the Neolithic, the Vinca symbols, also known as the Danube script, date to between 4,500 and 4,000 BCE and may be related to the Dispilio signs. It's been suggested that they may both have been a part of a proto-writing tradition in Old Europe. Many objects with the Vinca signs engraved in them have been found in Romania and Serbia, and are thought to have been created by the Vinca culture. These Neolithic people inhabited parts of what is today Romania, Serbia, Bulgaria, Kosovo, Bosnia, North Macedonia, and Greece. As well as the Vinca symbols, they produced rather interesting looking zoomorphic and anthropomorphic figurines. The symbols are etched into pottery, spindle whorls, and figurines amongst other objects. Some appear on their own, others in groups. They don't appear to be in any sort of order. Some look like pictograms, but others look like decorative patterns. Therefore, experts aren't sure if they really are a script or are just non-linguistic markings. Could the Dispilio Tablet and the Vinca symbols be evidence for a proto-writing system in the Neolithic period? There's not much to go on, but it's possible. And it also means that more examples could be waiting to be excavated. And if these farming communities, which did not build megaliths, were complex enough to develop scripts for their languages, then perhaps the megalith building cultures of the Neolithic also wrote things down. It's just that we haven't found evidence for it yet. Or the evidence is encoded in the monuments themselves. The Indus or Harappan script was created by the Indus Valley Civilization, which flourished during the Bronze Age in the northwest of South Asia between 3300 and 1300 BCE. Just as with the contemporary cultures of Mesopotamia and Egypt, the Indus Valley Civilization was made up of sophisticated urban settlements such as the cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Thousands of objects have been excavated which have symbols of the script engraved onto them. These include seals, copper plates, pottery, tools, and weapons. In spite of the huge volume of inscriptions and the work that has gone into decoding them, the script has yet to be deciphered. There are more than 400 signs, so it's thought they are logographic rather than syllabic. Many seem to represent objects, others are more abstract. There are also signs which have numerous variations. Experts have worked out that the script is meant to be read from right to left, but this isn't always the case. One of the obstacles to decipherment is that the inscriptions are quite short, usually just 5 signs. These short inscriptions are found on seals, so it's thought they may refer to the owner of the seal or their trade rather than being a sentence. The longest inscription has 34 signs and was found on a copper plate. It's possible that the Indus script might not encode a written language at all, but may indicate the owner of an object or have been some sort of accounting system. If a language is written in the Indus script, then it's also not known which language this would have been. Various ideas have been proposed, but there's no consensus. In my video, how turquoise miners in ancient Egypt invented the alphabet, I talked about just that, how the Bronze Age graffiti discovered in the turquoise mines of Sinai were simplified versions of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and were syllabic rather than logographic. These graffiti, now known as Proto-Sinaitic, gave birth to the Phoenician alphabet, which was the precursor to alphabetic systems that are used all over the world today. The late archaeologist Shikaripura Ranganatha Rao suggested that rather than developing from Proto-Sinaitic, the Phoenician alphabet had actually evolved from the Indus script. However, there are few supporters of this theory. The Indus script remains officially undeciphered, even though there have been lots of attempts to translate it and many ideas put forward as to what is written. In this video, I've covered a handful of scripts and we'll look at more in the future. It amazes me that proto-writing might go further back in time than we think. It's also kind of crazy that so many inscriptions remain untranslated, especially when these belong to cultures that are little understood. We may be able to learn so much more about them when they are deciphered. I personally think that language, both written and spoken, holds some incredible secrets to the ancient past. What about you? What do you think? Thanks for watching. Kindly like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you don't want to miss a premiere. A big thank you to my patrons. If anyone else wants to get in on that, I'm really cheap and seriously good value. Come and find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where I post regularly, and take a look at my website for the GPS locations of the places I personally visit.